Hey, I'm Abe, and today we're going to take a more in-depth look at bonds. Now, previously I received a request from Aldo on one of the comments of an early video that I made on bonds for a little bit deeper look with some visualizations to help explain things. If you'll recall, we have some key terms that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about bonds. We've got the face value, we've got the coupon rate, we've got the maturity date, and generally the duration of the bond. So let's look at the first example and see how these things realistically look. Now, as you can see here, we're looking at what looks like a textbook homework question. So don't get too bogged down in the actual specifics of what it's asking, but it tells us here you've got a 10-year bond with a face value of $1,000 that has a coupon rate of 5.5%, and it pays out coupon payments or semi-annual payments every 6 months. And that's what semi-annual means. So you look down here and you can see the timeline that they've laid out, that each period, let's call them, or each block of 6 months, they're getting half of 5.5%, because 5.5% is an annual return, and that's 5.5% of the face value, or of the $1,000 that you paid, let's say that you paid for this bond. So 5.5%, that's $55. You get half of that after 6 months and the other half at the end of the year, right? And so for each period, you've got zero. This is where you bought the original bond right at its inception. 6 months later, you get $27.50. You get another $27.50 6 months after that. And you continue to receive those $27.50 payments until you reach the end of the bond's maturity. At the maturity date, the duration is over, and you can see here, because it's a 10-year bond, we've got 20 periods where we're receiving coupon payments. You then are paid back the $1,000 that you loaned to whatever government body, municipal body, or corporate body that this bond was issued by, right? So for each of these, now these are all variants of an answer that you might be able to select for multiple choice. But if I had to look, I'm saying that at the very end, you'll receive all these payments throughout. And then at the very end, you will receive your last coupon payment, which is another $27.50 plus the face value. Let's look at a different example to just give it a little bit more depth. Now, as you can see here, this is an accounting coach's website, and he's talking more about the accounting side of things than specifically the bond itself. But this is a great visualization, I thought, of the same basic thing that we were looking at in the past example. So you buy the bond right as it's initially released. Now, this is a $100,000 bond with a 9% coupon rate, and it's maturing in 5 years. So it's paying semi-annually. You can see here, because each of the periods is 6 months. And it's taking that 9%. 9% of $100,000 is $9,000. But you're not getting that in one lump sum. You're getting it semi-annually. So half of $9,000 is $4,500. So after 6 months, you're getting $4,500. And then every 6 months after that, you're getting another $4,500 until the very end of the bond's maturity, or when it matures, you're getting your final coupon payment of $4,500. And you're getting the face value of the bond back. So you get your $100,000 back, and everything is done and closed. Part of the question was about visualizations. I personally find that these visualizations with a timeline like this are far more useful, and they make it easier to understand what's going on. There was also a part of the question regarding historic examples of the cost of the bond, the yield, and growth. Okay, so taking us to Fidelity's look at bonds, as of, it looks like it's August 11th when I'm recording this, these are the bond coupon rates, or bond yield rates of U.S. Treasury bonds, U.S. Treasury zeros. You've got different rated corporate bonds, AAA, AA, single A, and triple B, or junk bonds. This is just an increase in risk down to municipal bonds. And you can see that a 3-month bonds come in 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 1 year, all the way up to 30-year bonds. When we're talking about the cost of the bond, a lot is being considered in that, and I want to talk about that at the end. The yield right off the bat, if you look at it in a vacuum, if you look at bonds generally in a vacuum, you will see that you pay the face value, let's say $100 or $1,000. We'll just use $1,000 for the sake of this discussion. If you pay the $1,000 upright for the bond, they give you the coupon rate every period. Usually, let's say they're semi-annual, so every 6 months. And then at the end, you get it back and that's done. Now, the coupon rate then ends up being the overall yield of your bond. But as with everything in life, it's a lot more complicated when you take it out of the vacuum and you look at it with all the context that's available to it. So what are the interest rates doing? What is the market doing? What are other corporate or municipal bonds doing? What is this specific company struggling with, right? What are the risks associated and how is that impacting things? So generally speaking, in the market, you are compensated for risk. If you're investing in a corporate bond, for example, that is junk rated or very risky, or this triple B, you can see that a 30-year bond, I've got median yields selected here, but you can see that a 30-year bond would be giving you a higher yield than treasury bonds, higher or less risk or lower risk corporate bonds, and so on and so forth. But you're getting compensated for that risk. But as the market goes up and down, bond yields go up and down. And as a result, they're all the sort of the base and the core of bonds, at least in the U.S. market, is the U.S. Treasury. It's the most stable and most reliable, and therefore it will have the lowest yield that you will be able to find in the market. But it is the most reliable. So everything can be then compared to 1.31%. As you increase risk, you get more return. So what does this mean as far as the overall yield? As these things fluctuate, when you buy a bond, the coupon rate is not going to change. Once you buy that bond, that's it. Let's say you buy a U.S. Treasury bond at 1.31%. That's locked in for 30 years. 30 years, you're going to get each year $13.10 in coupon payments. 30 times. I mean, there are going to be periods because it's semi-annually, so you're going to get like half that, and it's going to be $6.55 every 6 months for 30 years, but you get what I'm saying. And then at the end, you're going to get $1,000 back because that's the face value. Now, what happens if the market or the general interest rate goes up to the point where the U.S. Treasury bonds are now selling at 4% or providing a 4% yield? Your 1.31% bond is now looking pretty bad if it was trying to be sold for the $1,000 that you paid for it. So let's talk through the final example that we've got here. So looking at this, you've bought a bond, let's say today, and it is one of those U.S. Treasury bonds. You're getting 1.31% yield on an annual basis. All of your coupon payments are going to be $6.55. And then a lot of this other information here is just for the calculation of present value. And that's a way of looking at money 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and understanding it in today's dollars after considering inflation and the decrease in value essentially of that money over time. So $10 in 30 years is going to be less in today's dollars than $10 today because that $10 will increase with inflation. We don't need to get into that. It's its own discussion. If you're curious, hit me up. I will go into it separately for you, and we can get into that. But for now, an old bond is the bond you're buying today, right? You're saying you get 1.31%. And then let's say, for the sake of this conversation, that tomorrow interest rates have gone wild today after you bought this bond, and now the U.S. Treasury bonds are being offered at 4%. They have a 4% yield. That means that annually, this new bond is going to be paying $40 a year compared to your $13 a year, right? And that the periodic payments of these coupons are going to be $6.55, and they're now going to be $20 every 6 months. You can see there's a huge difference. There's no reason any sane individual would then turn around and give you the same amount that you paid for that yesterday, right? So if you paid $1,000, you can see now that in order to make your bond worth selling, if you want to unload it, you don't have to. You can hold on to it. You can just collect your $13.10 every year and all the way to the end, get your $1,000 back. Nothing's going to change with that. It's not going to grow. It's not going to change. The yield will be 1.31%. But somebody who's about to enter the bond market needs to get a 4% yield on the bond that they're purchasing of a similar quality and kind, right? So because yours is the exact same type of bond, but yours was just sold earlier, still has all of the same coupon payments available to it because it was just yesterday, they're going to need the same basic present value of their money, right? So when you look at, and this is a present value calculation of the coupon payments for 30 years under these two different bonds and the present value of the face value. And as you can see, the face value is the same because it's $1,000. So if you bring that back 30 years, $1,000 in 30 years is worth $412 now based on 3% inflation. But the coupons, the value of the coupons varies significantly. So you're going to need, if you want to sell your bond, you're going to need to sell it at a discount to make up for the difference in the coupon payments that they could get if they just bought a new bond right now. They could just go to the government, buy it directly from the government, and get a much better deal than they get from you. Unless you make up the difference in today's dollars, right? If you look at the difference in the present value and you discount yours from $1,000 down about $530, right? So you're selling yours now for $470. They will then be able to get about on par with what they would if they bought a new 4% bond. So this is the main way that a bond's value will fluctuate and change, which is also how a lot of times bonds grow. So the bond itself isn't growing, but the value of that bond does. So to pull back from the spreadsheet, just so that we're not focusing right on the numbers. Conceptually, if you think about bonds as a fixed income form of debt, let's just say, a fixed income for you, right? That you're getting a set amount of payment. That if you're the one who is getting 4%, so let's say you've bought a bond, it doesn't matter what the yield is. If the market's interest rates go up, the value of your bond will go down. What it's been paying you and what it will continue to pay you is the same, but the value of it on the open market has decreased because higher interest rates are available on bonds. And then vice versa, if interest rates go down and drop below what your yield is or what your coupon rate is, then suddenly yours can be sold at a premium because your bond is returning a higher interest rate or it has a higher yield than the market is currently selling. It has a somewhat negative, or it has a negative correlation and relationship to interest rates. So when we're looking at the market right now, interest rates are about as low as they've ever been and probably about as low as they ever will be. By buying bonds, they're very steady. They don't change a ton, and the yields aren't going to change a significant amount, probably, unless inflation blows up and there's all kinds of things going on. But generally speaking, they're terribly stable, which is why people invest in them. And that reverse relationship with the rest of their investments in stocks and the rest of the market is usually why people choose to invest in them. So that's a bit of an in-depth look at bonds. Give a little bit of a visualization of kind of how that timeline works, what those coupon payments look like, and then how you get paid out at the end. So even if you sell your bond for a discount, say for $470, like we were talking about, it will still pay $1,000 back at the end. The difference in price in the discount or the premium is really just to make up for the difference in the coupon payments that you're getting and then the effective yield that is coming out of that. So you need to provide, say, for this example, a 4% yield. And the only way to do that is to adjust the overall price of the product because you can't change the yield of the bond itself that you're selling. So that was today's concept. If you have any questions, and it is rather involved, I mean, there's a whole discussion that can be had about present value of money versus future value, how to calculate it, and all of that. If you want to get into that, I'm happy to do that with you. The links to all of the sites that I've used thus far are going to be down in the video description below. Thank you for watching. Hit me up with what questions or concerns or curiosities you have, and I will get into them for you, and I will catch you in the next video.